South Florida billboard comparing Donald Trump to former Cuban President Fidel Castro has been taken down after it received backlash from Trump supporters in Miami. Last Monday, an anti-Trump political action committee paid for electronic billboard space to broadcast a message which translated to no to dictators, no to Trump. Almost immediately, the billboard received backlash for some MAGA members of Miami's Cuban community, including a popular conservative radio station and a Republican congresswoman. They're outraged. Oh, they're so outraged. How could they compare Donald Trump to Fidel Castro, even though Donald Trump said he would be a dictator on day one and that he would execute generals who are not politically loyal to him, and he would use SEAL Team 6 to execute his political enemies, and nobody could do anything about it. Where in the world would anybody get the idea that Donald Trump might act like a Castro, might act like a dictator? Oh, wait. They could get it from Donald Trump's own words. Because, again, he said he was going to be a dictator from day one, said he was going to terminate the Constitution, said he was going to execute generals for treason, said he was going to shut down TV stations, entire TV stations that he said were treasonous because they didn't support him, and said, yes, in court, the argument was made that he could execute his political opponents with SEAL Team 6 and not face criminal charges. But they're outraged. Oh, they're so outraged. How dare. Oh, this is as if you have lined up the families of Batista against the wall and shot them all over again. This is such an outrage. How could anybody be so insensitive to the Cuban community, comparing anybody to the evil and vile Fidel Castro? Well, footnote, they're outraged. The fact that, like the Ruddles, they were shocked and stunned and deeply saddened. That outrage comes less than a month after several Republicans in Congress, including Florida Senator and potential vice presidential contender Marco Rubio, compared Donald Trump's recent hush money trial to the deadly show trials that were consistently carried out by Fidel Castro and the Castro regime. I mean, forget the fact that Castro would just line political opponents up against the wall and shoot them. Marco Rubio and others compared a jury of Donald Trump's peers to Castro's show trials. Compared the process in New York where Donald Trump was charged, was able to spend millions of dollars on attorneys to defend him, could have gotten it dismissed if the judge had decided that it needed to be dismissed before going to trial. They had those procedural safeguards. But instead, he was found guilty of 34 counts by a jury of his peers. And now, he has a right to appeal. Did they have that when Castro was lining up Cuban freedom fighters and Christians against walls and shooting them dead and firing? No, they didn't. But nobody was shocked. I didn't hear the Congresswoman being shocked that Marco Rubio was comparing America's extraordinary legal system and the rule of law here with Fidel Castro's show trials and summary executions. But they did. They did. The hypocrisy's crazy. And what's even more crazy is that Lamar would take down a political ad like that when, again, Donald Trump used his own word, dictator. Yes, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. A billboard's not even a stretch. Anyway, let's bring in Democratic pollster Fernand Armani. He is also an MSNBC political analyst. I mean, come on, man. The hypocrisy is crazy. First of all, Trump says to everybody, I'm going to be a dictator. Sean Hannity goes, you're not going to really be a dictator. He goes, yes, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. You're not really going to seek retribution. Yes, I'm going to seek retribution. On and on and on and on. And yet they yank down that billboard when you have Marco Rubio comparing Fidel Castro firing squads to America's rule of law. What's your take?
Joe, I mean, you said it. This is a dish of hypocrisy and bad faith served with some black beans and rice. I mean, you can't get more outrageous, ridiculous, and absurd than the reaction of the Cuban-American community here on the MAGA side. Let's be honest. These are MAGA Cuban Americans. This is not a sentiment that is shared across the board for all of the reasons you outlined. I think the other illuminating thing here is that, yes, a hit dog barks. The fact that they have reacted this way to this billboard, which, as you said very clearly, is based not on a faulty comparison, but on Trump's own words. He has repeated, tripled, and quadrupled down on the idea that he would be a day one dictator, I think says a lot. And it also speaks to the fact that MAGA and Trump, Joe, do not want to be held accountable to their words and their actions. Just to add also one other component to this, you kind of touched on it earlier, you have Congresswoman Marielita Salazar, who is so offended by comparisons to Fidel Castro, acting in Castro-style manner by using her public position as a member of Congress to intervene with a private company, in this case, the billboard company Lamar, where she takes credit for taking a contractually agreed to free speech billboard down, which raises First Amendment questions, maybe even some lawsuit issues down the road. So, yeah, it's just another day in the life of Miami, but I think it's illuminating that they are reacting so strongly to this because they know this is based in truth.
Fernand, let's talk about how Biden could potentially do in Florida. I know that when Jen O'Malley Dillon was interviewed on John Heilman's podcast, he asked her if Florida's a battleground state. She said no. Dan Cannon, who's the head of battleground states for Biden, made a comment yesterday about how Florida is very much in play and a priority. I was down there for the 2022 midterms. I would describe it as a volatile atmosphere, particularly in South Florida when it comes to politics. Abortion's a big issue there. There's a 6-week abortion ban that's unpopular. Democrat won the mayor's race in Jacksonville following that after DeSantis signed that into law. What do you think Biden's chances are, and how much should they be investing in the state?
Jen, as someone who's been working here in Florida politics for over 25 years, I think it's critical to say one thing clearly on this subject of whether or not Florida's in play. Number one, the most important national and international security priority for the United States, I would say for the free world, is the re-election of Joe Biden. And that re-election means getting him to 270 electoral votes. That's what the rules say he needs for re-election. I think any conversation about spending a dollar, a dime, an hour in Florida, which right now, frankly, is just not in play. And I applaud Jen O'Malley Dillon for not gaslighting fellow Democrats by trying to double down on a concept which is not true. Every dollar, every hour of candidate time, every campaign time hour needs to be spent in the battleground states that will make sure Joe Biden is reelected to fulfill that national and international security priority. So Florida, it may be a situation where a national tidal wave mounts. If Donald Trump falls flat on his face in the debate this week and you start to see the emergence of a national tidal wave, Florida is going to be there along with some other states that aren't expected. But to prioritize this state, which in my judgment is just simply not in play right now in this cycle, is a mistake, and it's taking your eye off the ball from the most important priority of reelecting Joe Biden and getting him to those 270 electoral votes.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.